welcome to The Point. Well, this evening we have a really fascinating subject, which I need to take particular attention to because I made a mistake once, which Laura will tell you about. Dr. Laura is going to tell us what to pack for an essential holiday travel pack. We all go travelling these days, and we definitely need a travel pack. Laura, you're going to tell us about an essential holiday travel pack.
Yes, hello Richard, and hello everyone there. And of course we're laughing because we know what happened to you. Now this is the season where people are travelling a lot, and people travel all the time. But I think it's just an important thing to know what to take with you when you are travelling. And I have an interesting story. We're going to talk about your story, but I want to talk about mine first because I learned a lesson from God, actually. It was one of those, he chastises and disciplines those he loves situation. And what actually happened was that I decided, this is actually on my, believe it or not, this was my first trip to Israel. No. And this was in 2005. And I was feeling very rebellious at the time. I thought, yeah, I'm a doctor, but I'm not going as a doctor. I'm going as just Laura, you know. No. I've got knowledge, I'm not a doctor. And, when we got on the plane, as we did, we'd all settled in our seats. And about half an hour into all settling in our seats, guess what happened? We got this voice coming on from the intercom saying, go on then.
Is there a doctor on the plane? Is there a doctor on the plane, yes?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm only guessing. Yeah.
So this is me, because when I was packing, I thought, right, I need a break. At the time I was involved in my magazine, and you know, they're doing this Christian magazine that I was doing. I was very exhausted financially, physically, and everything, you know, but I had to go to Israel. So this voice came on the tannoy saying, is there a doctor on the plane? And of course I thought, well, yeah, I'm a doctor, but, you know, there must be other doctors on the plane. You know, 300 people on the plane. Surely there must be other doctors on the plane. And nobody said anything, and they asked again, is there a doctor on the plane? I was beginning to realise at the time then that I was the only doctor on the plane. There was a nurse on the plane, but there wasn't a doctor. She went forward and she said, I'm a nurse, blah, blah, blah. So eventually I had to own up that I was a doctor on the plane. And so went forward, and there was this lady there who was pregnant and could have been miscarrying. So, you know, we did what we could, made her comfortable, checked her blood pressure. There's not a lot you can do on a plane for a woman who's miscarrying. But so it became evident that I was a doctor. And not knowing that everybody else on that plane was also going to be in the tour group that I was part of. And so basically throughout the 7 to 10 days that I was in Israel, I was faced with one medical emergency after the other, after the other, after the other. And in fact, my first visit to Hadassah Hospital was in 2005, because I had to escort a patient who'd had a head injury with the Magen David Adom ambulance, like that's the sort of ambulance service, Magen David Adom. I had to escort this patient who'd had a head injury to Hadassah Hospital. And that was my first visit there, and I have been back since. In fact, I was there just last year again. But it was so... it was such an eye-opener, but it was such a period of really God saying to me, listen, I've called you to be a doctor, and I know that sometimes it can be a burden, but even while you're on holiday, I want you to be ready. I want you to be prepared for a situation that could arise. And every day there was a diabetic and a DKA, ketoacidosis. There was somebody who had some foreign body in their souls. There was somebody who had vomiting and diarrhea. In fact, there was almost an outbreak of gastroenteritis and diarrhea and vomiting. And so the fact that I was a doctor and the fact people respected me made a difference, because I had to say to all the coach members on my coach and everybody, right, everybody's got to wash their hands. Everybody's got to use hand sanitizer before they come onto the coach, and everybody's, you know. So that actually made a difference to the spread of the bug. So my lesson, and in fact, on the way back from Israel, now that everybody knew I was a doctor, just to make the point that, you know, this was not an accident. On the way back to England, there was another medical emergency, and again they asked, is there a doctor on the plane? And by now, because everybody knew who I was, they went, she's over there.
I like it.
And so anyway, that was my interesting journey through being a doctor, being aware that God is something God has called me to. It is a job, but it's also a calling, and God has made it through all my life that I am the one who called you into this. You didn't get here of your own ability. And so it was just a reminder that you've always got to be ready to be a doctor, whatever. So for those of you who are traveling, and sometimes when we do travel, as Richard, you're about to tell your testimony of what happened to you.
Well, yes. I mean, talk about being a stupid doctor. Yes, well, I mean, just recently, actually, I went to Mexico and caught the dreaded tummy bug. So there was I with very bad diarrhea, and of course I hadn't got any Imodium or loperamide or whatever it is they have these days, because I'm a bit out of date. But foolishly, I didn't listen to Dr. Laura, and I didn't have my pills, so I had to put up with some diarrhea for 3 days because they hadn't actually got any on the resort where we were. But anyway, it's my fault, so listen very carefully to what Laura's going to tell you.
So we're going to go through some common things that happen when we travel. As we know, we live in our own environment, and with that comes changes to our bodies, to our body clocks and different things. We get exposed to other types of bugs that we're not normally exposed to, and this can create problems for us on different levels. So the first level I'd like to talk about is sleep disorders. Now, I'm talking specifically for people who are traveling, not for people who have insomnia on a regular basis. That's slightly different, but this is with regards specifically to traveling and specifically to adults as well. So sleep disorders, and the first image we have there, we'll see this poor lady can't sleep. How many times have we gone abroad, been in a hotel, can't sleep, or due to time zone changes, you know, 5-6 hours forward or backwards or whatever, we find it difficult to sleep. Now, for those of you who like to take natural remedies for lots of things, and I would certainly support that as a first line for whatever you do, chamomile tea is brilliant. Oh, right. It's absolutely brilliant for insomnia. Now, the problem of insomnia is that, you know, when people are trying to sleep, the physiology of it is that we've got our eyes, and the back of the eyes, light goes through our eyes into something called the pineal gland, which is in the brain. And the pineal gland is what actually produces the substance called melatonin. Yes. And melatonin is what regulates, melatonin and cortisol, they are basically the wake-up hormone and the sleep hormone. Melatonin is the sleep hormone, so as light gets darker, more melatonin is produced. And as it gets lighter, more cortisol is produced by the adrenal glands, which sort of sit on top of the kidneys. So there's this balance between cortisol, which is the wake-up hormone, and melatonin, which is the sleepy, drowsy hormone. And of course, if time zones are changed, then the poor body can get very confused, you know, because your body's come from a light where you should be asleep, and now you're awake, and that can just create problems with your circadian rhythm. And in such instances, chamomile tea would be a really good start. And I would encourage you to pack a few bags of chamomile tea, dry chamomile tea, in your little travel case, a travel bag. You can make up a little travel first aid kit. Shouldn't cause any problems with quarantine or anything, because it's just chamomile tea in a bag. I wouldn't take any dry leaves or any dry herbs, because then you might run into problems with immigrations thinking you might have something else in your kit. So start off with something like chamomile tea, and you can drink that regularly. It relaxes you. Chamomile tea is very good. It acts on the brain. It causes relaxation. It causes just a sense of well-being. It acts on the receptor sites in the brain, which help you to relax. It's also very good antioxidant, and it's also very good for skin, and we'll be using that later when we come to talk about skin disorders. And chamomile is also very good for the gut. So in a situation like yours, Richard, even though you didn't have Imodium, you could have got some chamomile tea, and that would have helped a little bit with the cramps and with the diarrhea that you were having. Now, if chamomile doesn't work for you, or you'd rather take a tablet, there are lots of things you can take. Melatonin certainly is one of them. You can do that. And something called promethazine. Promethazine is also known as Phenergan. And promethazine is an antihistamine, and that's actually how it works. It works on the brain. It sort of sits on the dopamine and histamine receptors, and it induces sleep. But there are precautions with promethazine or phenergan. If you're taking medication, it's important that you make sure that it doesn't interact with the other medication that you're taking, because it can interact with certain medication. So do be careful. But phenergan or promethazine is another option that you can have if you're trying to sleep through the time zones. And also I've put XYZ on there because there are all sorts of other things that you can have, but those are the sort of the top ones that I would recommend. Do you ever find you have problems sleeping when you travel? Or?
Oh, very much so. Actually, phenergan really works, actually, for me. Little blue tablets.
Yes. It is very good, and so it's recommended, but just be careful if you're taking.
You do feel a bit drowsy the next day.
You do. It can.
Yeah.
You can stay drowsy. So as they say, driving, operating heavy machinery, and all that sort of stuff. Be careful. But remember, this is advice just for travel. This is not for everyday insomnia. I will be dealing with the insomnia on its own, and we'll go into sleep hygiene and other things. But this is specifically for traveling. So the next thing we're going to talk about is bowel problems, Richard. And we got the second image there, which just sort of illustrates the sort of things that you can use for bowel problems, whether it's upper bowel, whether it's the stomach, digestive issues, things like indigestion, or the bowels, the large bowels, the colon, with diarrhea and that sort of thing.
Oh, yes.
So again, if you're into natural remedies, lots of natural remedies for indigestion and diarrhea. For indigestion, you've got things like mint tea, mint leaves. Again, you can just buy the mint tea and take the little tea bags with you. Lemon and ginger, fantastic as well. So you can, again, it's difficult, you can't take ginger and stuff like that with you abroad, but you can get ginger powder, and you can also have lemon in the little bottles. You can actually have prepared lemons, or when you get to wherever you go, and just buy lemons at the local source that you have. But lemon and ginger and mint are very good for indigestion problems. So changing diet, maybe having a little bit too much alcohol, a bit too much rich food, oily food, eating too late at night. If you go to one of those eat all as much as you like places, all inclusive, where you can drink as much and eat as much as you like. Do you remember when we went to, in 2013, we went down to Eilat in Israel?
Yes.
And we had this hotel where we could eat as much and drink as much. They actually had an open bar there, remember?
I do. Right.
And I don't drink, so it wasn't much use to me, but I do know that a lot of people enjoyed being in this hotel because they could just go and knock back the booze as much as they wanted. So sometimes when we're on holiday, we do tend to overindulge a little bit. We eat and drink outside the norm. So things like mint, ginger and lemon are very good for indigestion. And I've also got their baking powder. Baking soda is actually very good as well. So it's sodium bicarbonate basically, and you just follow. I haven't got the recipe done, but if you go onto the internet and look up homemade recipe for baking soda to help with indigestion, you will find good remedies on there for you to use. So you can just make up your own with a few teaspoons of baking soda. So the next kind of problem we can have, and if you've tried the natural products like mint, lemon and ginger, and you're finding that you're still not having success with indigestion, then obviously you can try things like the usual ones that you can buy from the chemist, and sometimes you can get them in little sachets, like the calcium carbonate products. One's called Gaviscon, that's quite a common one that you can have. You can take the tablets along with you, the Rennies, and all those other sorts of things that you can take with you on holiday. So you've got some ginger powder there, as I've said, and the chalky tablets, which are good indigestion remedies. Now I'm just going to hang on to that slide for a little second, because there you can see a little substance there at the bottom there, a little powder substance, and that's actually psyllium husk. So one of the problems that can happen to people when they go on holiday is constipation. It's another of the bowel problems. So we talked about diarrhea and indigestion, but people can also end up with constipation, perhaps because they're not having enough fibre in their diet, or maybe they're not as active as they would normally do. As you know, exercise and high fibre diet keeps the bowels regular. So we've got psyllium husk, which is a very natural fibre, high fibre food that you can have. It's just You can pack it. It comes in capsules as well. And I remember when I was on one of the Revelation TV tours, I was handing out the psyllium husks because a few people went in with constipation. And of course, you got well-known remedies like Senokot, and Senokot is a stimulant laxative, and what it does there, it actually goes, it gets to the large bowel, and it causes active stimulation of the smooth muscle in the large bowel to help to force out the retained products. Nevertheless, remember that when you're on holiday, it's important to drink lots and lots of water, because water and fibre need to go together to help you to keep your bowels regular. So we talked about constipation, gastroenteritis, indigestion. We've also got nausea, and that can be sometimes part of the jelly belly that you get. Some people just have the diarrhea, but some people unfortunately will have both vomiting and diarrhea, and that can be quite awful for them. And on that previous slide, you'll find things like loperamide, which is the Imodium, hyoscine, and prochlorperazine. These are both antiemetics, and ginger is actually good as an antiemetic as well, and a lot of pregnant women will find that out, that for morning sickness, if they had a little bit of ginger crystals, ginger tea, whatever, ginger, liberally have ginger, it would actually help their morning sickness. So all round, it's very good for nausea. So hyoscine is otherwise known as Buscopan. It serves two roles. Hyoscine is both an antispasmodic, so it can help with the bowel cramps, but it's also for nausea. Prochlorperazine, probably known as Stemetil or Bucostem. They come in tablets, they come in buccal tablets that they can pop between the lip and the upper gum, and they just dissolve without water, and then within half an hour they're able to drink to make up for their nausea and vomiting. So that's the bowels. Anything to add to that, Richard?
You're the doctor. I've done it for a long time. I'm listening very carefully
Dr.
and learning
Richard
a lot.
Kent, so are you.
Used to be.
So we go to the next image, and we're now talking about skin conditions now. So, on holiday, different changes in the weather. Joe Bloggs there on the right at the bottom of the diagram has got sunburn, poor thing. But also we got the problems with insects, with mosquitoes and different other sorts of insects that unfortunately can wreak havoc on a person's holiday. The exposed parts of the skin are affected, and people basically end up with bites. Hopefully, if they're going to malaria endemic areas, they would be taking their anti-malarial tablets even before they get to those areas. But what do people do when they have insect bites? Not necessarily mosquitoes, but other insects. What do they do when they get these awful little bites, or when they get sunburn? There are lots of things that they can do. First of all, there are things they can apply on their skin to prevent them having bites, that actually insect repellents. But some of these have got quite strong chemicals in them, so it's always best to avoid as much as possible and use natural products whenever possible. There's certain types of citrus smells that insects don't like. So a citrus containing oil, for instance, an essential oil, would serve the purpose as a skin repellent, as an insect skin repellent. But if they do happen to bite, there are things that people can place on their skin, such as natural products like aloe vera. Aloe vera is what they call the natural steroid cream. Aloe vera is a very good anti-inflammatory cream. It's really, really good for that. Aloe vera is also good for the bowels, by the way. So that's something, that's one of those things you can combine, like chamomile tea, you can have it for this or that. So aloe vera is a very good gel to carry around with you, because it's anti-inflammatory, and it will help with stings and burns as well. Coconut oil is very good for soothing sunburn, and is actually good to use before going out in the sun as a potential sunblock. And it's very, very good for that. So coconut oil is something that I would recommend that you have with you. You can have them in little tubes. Pack them in your whole luggage, so you don't have to have a problem with just having 100 mils. It melts in the sun anyway, so it'll be in the liquid form if you go into a warm country, which is where you're likely to get a sunburn from. So we've got Gelonet there as well, which is good for sunburn. So if a person does happen to get burned, you've got Gelonet, which you can use. You've got hydrocortisone cream for insect bites, as well as antiseptic cream for insect bites. You've got antihistamines like promethazine, the sleep inducer, could also be used as an antihistamine to help reduce the inflammation. And what have you got to say about this?
Well, on the subject of insect bites, the military developed something called aspivenin. Have you heard of that?
No, tell me more.
Well, you can get it on Amazon or get it lots of places.
How do you spell
It's
it?
called Aspiven. It's like a syringe, and you can suck out snake venom or mosquito bites or any insect bites. They were developed by the military. Anyway, it really works. I actually pack it myself. And to show you how well it works, we've got 7 grandchildren. One of them was 2 visiting the UK from Australia, and he got stung by a wasp. And you can imagine what a 2-year-old making a big shout and yell about a wasp sting on his thing. So I got this Aspivenin, put it on there and sucked out the venom. Instant peace. He said, oh, that's better, and carried on playing. And it really does work, actually. It's quite expensive. It's £20. But I think they're a really good idea. They work for insect bites, snake bites, any sort of bite.
Yeah. I have heard of it. I didn't realise it was called that, but yes, I have heard of that. I have heard of the sucker outer of poison venom.
You have to have it with you, because you have to suck it out before it, the venom or whatever gets into the
circulation.
Yes,
in subcutaneous tissue. So Aspivenis. Well, there you go. Put that in your travel kit as well, because that would be very, very useful, because we do tend to get lots of bites. So bites. We've covered bites, we've covered sunburn, aloe vera, coconut oil, you've got the antiseptic creams as well, which you can pack, and hydrocortisone cream as well. Tea tree oil is a natural antiseptic, so you can use that as well, and take that with you in little tubes. Shouldn't, your travel kit shouldn't be more than a toilet bag, because you don't want to pack too much, but you want to pack things that are relevant and also relevant to where you will be going. Bites and things. I have to say, I've been to Israel quite a few times now. I don't think I've ever been bitten in Israel, but I've been Sega. I've done a Sega tour on these Sega little bikes, these, what do they call, Segway machines.
Oh, yes.
And in one of them, we did a Segway tour in Jerusalem, which was really a wonderful way to get around Jerusalem. And in one of the times that I did that, I actually tripped and fell. Oh. And really hurt my ankle quite badly. So it actually brings us nicely to the next slide, which is about bruises and sprains and cuts and stuff like that. Because surprisingly, I was able to get up from this accident with this, where I collided with somebody on my Segway machine. But it was very painful, and I actually ended up with quite a very injured ankle. Thankfully, it was on the last day of our tour to Israel, so we were going straight to the airport from then. So I just, put something around it and got to the airport and got back to the UK, and I was fine. But it was nasty. But when we're traveling, we're going on tours, we're doing lots of walking. Sometimes when we're walking through the old city, through the bazaar, through the markets, it can be quite slippery in some of the stones, Richard, there. And so one has to be careful about slipping on where, because they've been walking for centuries in those shooks, and the little bit of water, you can slip very easily. So if you're going to Israel or anywhere like that, make sure you've got really good sort of good soles, non-slip soles. Good. But walking, if you happen to walk and sprain a part of your body, make sure again that you're well prepared with bandages. If you're staying in a hotel, you can ask them for an ice pack at the end of the day, and you can just wrap whatever it is in some cool substance. You can sometimes get these Gelonet things that you can put in the these gel packs that you can put in the fridge. Sometimes in hotels you've got a fridge in your hotel room. You can stick them in the fridge and then just wrap them around the injured part. So having a bandage is a good idea. It's a very poorly scraped knee there, again, that's a good idea if you're going to be falling and tripping. Have your plasters, have your antiseptic wipes, and I've also got some silver solution. Silver is a very good natural anti-bug preparation. So silver spray, you can gargle with it, sore throat, you can drink it if you're having tummy issues, you can spray it on wounds, in your nose, use it as a hand sanitizer. So that's actually very useful to have, is some silver solution with you, and that can go in your hold luggage. The next slide, we're not long now. The next slide, again, is just a kind of a mishmash, really, of things that are worth having with you. Safety pins for putting bandages together, just a little travel kit, as I've said, the little small kit, cotton buds, for digging things out of wounds and stuff like that, or applying as a little a turpentine or antiseptic gel to a little wound. The cotton buds coming very useful. Having gloves in case you have to deal with something that might be bodily fluids of some other person. Painkillers, you know, the usual paracetamol and oral anti-inflammatories are very good to have. And a thermometer is quite useful to have as well. Just a good old boring old thermometer, because sometimes in a hot country you may not be sure whether you've got a temperature or not, and so having a thermometer is actually a very useful thing to have. And finally, I just want to encourage everyone, if you haven't been to Israel yet, why don't you join the Revelation TV tour that's coming up soon. Now these photos are taken, these are my personal photos, and I'm actually in 2 of the photos there. They're all taken in Jerusalem, and they were actually taken in November 2018, so not that long ago. And there's me, that's the top one there, is the Garden of Gethsemane, well, one of the many gardens of Gethsemane, but that's one of the popular ones, the Garden of Gethsemane, and there's this little, as you can see, that little peace sign there, and the bottom to the left there is me in Jerusalem, and they've got this lovely I love Jerusalem thing out there, which everybody now takes a photo. I'm sure everybody who's been to Jerusalem would just stand there and take a photo by it. It's like, you know, you got to have that when you go to Jerusalem. So I love Jerusalem, so there I was taking a photo. And the third photo, of course, is me at the Western Wall, and obviously the ladies section of the Western Wall, and just dressed appropriately for where I was. And just to encourage you to come to Israel, we've got the Revelation TV 16th birthday tour coming up soon. Richard, you planning to come?
Well, I'd very much like to come. I haven't actually made that decision yet. It's led by Tim, I believe.
That's right, and all the usual motley crew will be there. Howard Leslie and Gordon Lauder, etc. will be there.
Yes.
So we hope you'll be part of that. Look forward to seeing you. Yeah. So that's kind of it, really. I mean, hopefully, in a nutshell, those are the sort of things you should be carrying around with you. Some you might find relevant, some not so relevant, but I think as a basic travel first aid bag, those things will be useful to deal with your bowel, your skin, your digestive issue problems, your sleeplessness problems, your musculoskeletal problems, and of course don't forget, if you need to be in a yellow fever area, make sure that you do have a yellow fever vaccine. So Richard, I am excited by this, and I hope to see you soon.
Well,